Hi, and welcome to Mr. Wilson Teaches Self-Portrait Monoprints. Monoprints is a very easy way to introduce yourself into printmaking, and as long as you're able to trace and basically take a photo and represent it in any sort of way, you'll definitely be very good at this. The first step you're going to need is to get all your supplies out to create the self-portrait monoprint. You're going to be using ink, and you can choose any color, and you can use multiple colors if you want. You're going to need a piece of plastic. I've got the P on here for portrait, and hopefully you can see on the camera here that one side has been run over with sandpaper so that it gets a frosted edge, and that's so the ink can actually collect in the area. You're going to need printing paper as well as your photo that you're going to be using, masking tape for registration, a paintbrush that we're going to use the butt of it to do the tracing, a brayer, and you'll notice it's always setting up like this so you don't damage the actual rubber roller, so you just want to leave it up, and a bench hook, which is called that because it hooks right onto your bench, and this is what we're going to be using to ink. The first thing you're going to do once you get those supplies is to start the registration, and registration means that you're going to be placing everything where you want it to be for the entire process. So I'm going to start by registering my plate to the table. So I'm taping around the edge, and this is telling me that my plate belongs in that corner. And I'm also going to do the opposite corners, so make sure that it's straight at all times. And after you do this, you are able to move the plate, clean it, wash it, add ink to it, anything you like, and you always know it goes right back to home base there. The second thing you're going to register is your paper and your picture. I'm going to take two small pieces of tape, make sure that my face is relatively centered to it, and tape it onto the paper. And then next I'm going to register the paper to the table. And this is the more difficult part. You have to make sure that you're feeling the edges of the plastic to know that you're actually printing straight. So that's about right. And hopefully if you did this right, you're going to register the 3 P's, the plastic, the paper, the picture, and then you should be able to flip it up and take your plate right out so you can print it. The next step is actually inking your bench hook with the brayer. And some of these inks are oil-based. This is a water-based one, that means it's washable, but you still have to massage it a little and make sure that you're getting all the ink mixed up before you use it. And it really doesn't take a lot of ink to create one of these portraits, so a little bit goes a long way. Remember, you can always add more rather than take away. So I'm putting a little bit of ink on here. I'm starting to roll it out. And what we're looking for is a noise rather than a look. So once you start to hear, I'm not sure if you can actually hear that on the camera, but I'm looking for a solid, consistent, sort of sticky sound. And that means you're ready to start printing. And this is probably the more difficult part, inking your plate and making sure that's even. And typically, depending on what color, you still should be able to see the P through the ink, and if you can't, that means you're using way too much ink. And if you get this on the table, it's not a big deal, it washes right up. But make sure every area of your plate has that solid layer of ink. And you'll notice I'm inking away from the area that I'm actually printing in, and that's in case I go off, which I did right there. I don't want it to ruin any of the areas that I'm printing, so I don't want it to get on the paper. And we're looking for a nice, almost satin finish. And I want it to be about the same on every single area. Like I said, you still should be able to see the P through there. If you hold it up, you should be able to see it as well. Then you're going to place it right back into your registered area. Lightly flip the paper over and let it fall. And then you have to be careful that you don't apply any pressure to the actual paper, or else it's going to print. So you can either hold your hand up like this or maneuver it around. And we're going to be doing a contour line drawing of the figure. And this actually works with anything. Remember that it's going to come out as a mirror image. So if you plan on doing lettering, you have to plan ahead and make sure it's already mirrored. And usually people find that out the hard way. And what's nice about this too is if there's areas you don't want to show up, let's say you have a blemish or some sort of scar or something like that, you can just not draw that part. Maybe a bad hair day. And it's hard, you can't take away any area once you apply the pressure. So you do have to be careful as you do this. And we'll peek at it in a second, make sure everything's transferring correctly. So if you just lift it up, you can see and you'll notice that the ink is starting to show up, which is a good thing. And some of the areas are really hard to do if they're super tiny. So you can either make your picture bigger, move on to a bigger piece of plastic, or you can use a smaller brush if you have to. Even like a toothpick would transfer. And this is very, very simple, really nice way to introduce printmaking to a student or a classroom. Get the idea of what transferring means. And they're called monoprints because there's only one that you're printing, and it's not something that you can replicate exactly. So it'll always be a one-of-a-kind print. It can get pretty close depending on how skilled you are, but you'll never get the exact print again. So that's why it's called mono. And when you draw the hair, you gotta make sure that you're actually following the hairline. So whatever way your hair is styled, that's the way you want the lines to go. Same with the eyebrows. And chances are I forgot something in here. You can sort of see a little reflection from the areas that you push down. It's hard to see and it depends on the angle. But typically I can guess more or less where I've gotten into. Alright, let's flip it up and see if I missed any area. So you can see I missed the neck part there. I think I'm going to add a little more color into the eye as well. It's a little darker. It depends on what color eyes you have. Let's see where the printing is. Right here. Here. Let's look at that again. And a little bit on top of the hair here. That should be it. And then you're going to take your print now. You can pull off the actual picture and tack this up so that it can dry. And now you're ready to print again. So they're pretty quick and easy. Probably should have put a couple lines under there too. And what's interesting too, you can see the actual print on here as well if you hold it up to the light. And that's basically it. Make sure you wash everything off well, and it comes off just with water, and dry it. If you do your next print and you not have everything completely dry, that water will ruin the ink and you won't be able to get a proper print on the next one. But they're pretty quick and simple, and you can usually do them in about that time frame. And if you work too slow, your ink's going to start to dry on you. So you can see some of these areas are a little lighter, and that's because of the pace I was going. So you want to make sure that you're moving fast enough that you can pick up the ink before it dries on you. Other than that, make sure everything's cleaned up and you pull your tape off your table, and that's your self-portrait monoprint.